A woman's scream pierces the recycled air of Flight 2207. Can a quiet stranger save the day at 35,000 feet? We need a doctor. The panicked flight attendant's voice cuts through idle chatter as passengers crane their necks to see the commotion. A young woman is doubled over in seat 13C, her water broken, contractions minutes apart, no medical help for hours. The cabin erupts in panic except for one passenger. In row 17, a quiet woman closes her book, rolls up her sleeves, revealing scarred forearms, and stands. Nobody knows her story, but in the next hour, with nothing but a shoelace from her combat boot, she'll deliver a miracle at 35,000 feet. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If this story touched you, please consider subscribing. We bring you remarkable true stories of extraordinary people hiding in plain sight. The evening sunlight slanted through half-closed windows of Flight 2207, casting long shadows across the cabin as the aircraft cruised at 35,000 foot somewhere over the Atlantic. Most passengers had settled into the familiar rhythm of a transatlantic flight, headphones on, blankets pulled up, the low hum of the engines a constant background to their journey. In row 17, Talia Westbrook sat quietly reading a medical journal. Unlike the business travelers around her in pressed suits, or the vacation-goers in comfortable loungewear, Talia carried herself with a subtle alertness. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical style, and beneath her seat rested a pair of well-worn combat boots, functional rather than fashionable. For rows ahead, Vivian, a flight attendant with 15 years of experience, paused beside seat 13C, where a young woman named Zara Nielsen was visibly uncomfortable. "More water?" Vivian offered, noting the young woman's third trip to the bathroom in the past hour. "Thank you," Zara replied with a Swedish accent, accepting the cup with a trembling hand. She shifted uncomfortably, trying to find a position that would ease the growing pressure in her lower back. Vivian hesitated. "Are you feeling all right, miss? Is there anything else I can get you?" "I am fine," Zara insisted, forcing a smile. "Just a bit of turbulence inside." She gestured vaguely toward her swollen belly. Vivian nodded professionally, but her experienced eyes did not miss the sheen of sweat on Zara's forehead, or the way she winced as she adjusted her position again. "How far along are you?" 3 weeks, Zara admitted. "I am going to America to stay with my sister until the baby comes." She bit her lip. The doctor said it was still safe to fly. From her seat in row 17, Talia glanced up briefly from her journal, her attention caught by the interaction. Her eyes lingered on Zara for a moment before returning to her reading. Will her hidden skills change everything? The next hour passed in deceptive calm until the aircraft suddenly lurched, caught in unexpected turbulence. Oxygen masks dropped from overhead compartments before quickly retracting. A system malfunction triggered by the rough air. Passengers gasped and grabbed armrests. In the moment of chaos that followed, Zara doubled over with a cry that cut through the cabin noise. "It is nothing," she insisted as Vivian rushed to her side. "Just..." Her words dissolved into a pained moan as liquid soaked through her leggings and pooled on the seat. "Her water broke," someone exclaimed. A businessman across the aisle scowled. "Can she keep it down? I have a connection to make in New York." Vivian ignored him, kneeling beside Zara. "How far apart are your contractions?" "I do not know," Zara whispered, panic rising in her voice. "It was not supposed to happen yet. It is too early." The captain's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing some unexpected turbulence. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts." Vivian pressed the call button, summoning the lead flight attendant. Within minutes, the cabin crew was in emergency mode. They cleared the back section of the plane, creating a makeshift private area with airline blankets hung as screens. "Is there a doctor on board?" Vivian announced, her voice professionally calm despite the urgency. "We have a medical emergency." A middle-aged man raised his hand. "I am a nursing student, 3rd year." He moved toward the back, but upon seeing Zara's condition, his confidence visibly faltered. Talia watched the scene unfold, her hands methodically organizing her few belongings, a habit born of discipline rather than anxiety. She made no move to volunteer, instead observing as the nursing student attempted to assess Zara's condition. The contractions are only minutes apart, he announced, voice rising with concern. This baby is coming now. Zara had begun speaking rapidly in Swedish, tears streaming down her face as she clutched at Vivian's hand. The captain's voice came over the intercom again. We are attempting to divert to Newfoundland, but we are still approximately 2 hours out. If there is anyone with medical training on board, your assistance would be greatly appreciated. Passengers craned their necks, looking around expectantly. The nursing student was growing increasingly flustered as he tried to recall his training. It was only then that Talia quietly closed her journal, placed it in her bag, and stood up. She made her way toward the commotion at the back of the plane, her movements purposeful and measured. Excuse me, she said softly to the gathered flight attendants. I have field experience. I can help. What kind of field experience? Vivian asked, relief and skepticism mingling in her voice as Talia approached the makeshift delivery area. Talia did not elaborate. I need clean towels, hot water, the first aid kit, and any alcohol you have on board, preferably something strong. Her calm authority had an immediate effect. The flight attendants dispersed to gather supplies while passengers watched with a mixture of concern and curiosity. Talia knelt beside Zara, who was now lying across 3 seats, her face contorted with pain. Zara, my name is Talia, she said, her voice steady and reassuring. I am going to help you deliver your baby. Do you understand? Zara nodded through tears, clutching at her belly. It is too early, she gasped. 7 weeks too early. Babies sometimes have their own schedule, Talia replied, carefully examining Zara's condition with practiced hands. Right now, I need you to focus on your breathing like this. She demonstrated a slow, controlled breathing pattern. Vivian returned with supplies. Are you a doctor? She asked Talia directly. I have field experience, Talia repeated, rolling up her sleeves. For a brief moment, a glimpse of scarred skin was visible on her forearm, along with what appeared to be a partially visible tattoo. That will have to be enough. The plane hit another pocket of turbulence, causing the lights to flicker momentarily. The captain's voice came over the intercom again, informing passengers that headwinds were stronger than anticipated and their diversion to Newfoundland would take longer than expected. Talia remained the eye of the storm, methodical, focused, her hands steady as she prepared what limited supplies were available. She directed Vivian and another flight attendant with the precision of someone used to giving orders in crisis situations. After examining Zara more thoroughly, Talia's expression showed a flicker of concern. The baby is breech, she announced quietly to Vivian. This complicates things. How will she overcome this challenge mid-flight? A passenger from first class had wandered back to observe and was holding up his phone. I am recording this for her memories, he explained when Talia looked up. Without breaking her concentration, Talia reached over, gently took the phone, and handed it to Vivian. No recordings, she said firmly. Privacy matters. As Zara's contractions intensified, she gripped Talia's hand with surprising strength, speaking rapidly in Swedish through her pain. She is asking if her baby will die, translated an elderly Swedish passenger who had come to help. Talia looked directly into Zara's frightened eyes. Not today, she promised with quiet conviction. Your baby is not going to die today. For the next 40 minutes, Talia guided Zara through increasingly difficult contractions. The cabin had grown eerily silent, passengers collectively holding their breath as the drama unfolded. Even the complaining businessmen watched solemnly from a distance. I need more light, Talia instructed, and instantly 3 passengers offered their phone flashlights. The nursing student hovered nearby, passing supplies as needed and watching Talia's techniques with professional interest. Where did you learn to do this? He asked quietly. Places where ambulances do not come, Talia replied without elaboration, her focus unwavering as she monitored Zara's progress. A flight attendant approached with a stack of freshly laundered napkins from first class. Will these help? Perfect. Talia nodded, arranging them within reach. She checked her watch, then glanced toward the cockpit. How long until landing? Still 90 minutes out, Vivian replied. The headwinds are brutal. Talia processed this information without visible reaction. Zara, listen to me carefully. Your baby is coming now. We cannot wait for the landing. You are going to deliver here, and everything is going to be fine. Zara's eyes widened with fear, but she nodded, putting her trust in this calm stranger. On the next contraction, I want you to push, Talia instructed, positioning herself at the end of the makeshift bed. Not before, not after, exactly when I tell you. The elderly Swedish passenger held Zara's hand, whispering encouragement in her native tongue. The other passengers had formed a respectful perimeter, some praying quietly, others averting their eyes to give privacy, but all aware they were witnessing something extraordinary. When the next contraction came, Zara pushed with all her might, her cry of pain muffled by her own hand. Good, Talia said again with the next one. The process continued, each push bringing the baby closer to delivery. Talia worked with practiced efficiency, her hands moving with precision despite the challenging conditions. I can see the feet, she announced after the fifth push. Her expression remained neutral, but those with medical knowledge in the cabin understood the additional complication of a breech birth. Is that bad? Vivian whispered. It is what it is, Talia replied evenly. We adapt. With careful guidance and constant reassurance to Zara, Talia managed the delicate process of delivering a breech baby in the confined space of an airplane cabin. Her movements were deliberate, her instructions clear and calm. One more big push, Zara, she urged as the young mother's strength was clearly flagging. Your baby is almost here. Summoning her last reserves of energy, Zara bore down with determination. Moments later, a tiny form emerged completely into Talia's waiting hands. A baby girl, small and alarmingly still. The cabin held its collective breath as Talia quickly assessed the newborn. Without hesitation, she cleared the infant's airways and gently stimulated her breathing with practiced movements. For several agonizing seconds, there was no response. Then, as if deciding to join the world after all, the tiny baby took her first shuddering breath and let out a thin cry that seemed to release the tension from every passenger on the plane. A spontaneous cheer erupted, quickly hushed out of respect. Talia wrapped the baby in clean napkins and placed her on Zara's chest. She needs to stay warm, Talia instructed. Skin-to-skin contact is best. Tears streamed down Zara's face as she beheld her daughter. She is so small, she whispered. But she is strong, Talia assured her, still monitoring both mother and child closely, just like her mother. The immediate crisis passed, but Talia knew their challenges were not over. A premature infant and a new mother who had just given birth needed proper medical care as soon as possible. She turned to Vivian. I need to cut and tie the umbilical cord. Do we have anything suitable on board? The flight attendants exchanged glances and shook their heads. The first aid kit contained bandages and basic medications, but nothing appropriate for this situation. Without hesitation, Talia reached down and removed one of her combat boots. With practiced efficiency, she extracted the shoelace and held it up. Alcohol, she requested, and Vivian promptly produced a miniature bottle of vodka from the beverage cart. Talia thoroughly doused the shoelace with the alcohol, then used it to tie off the umbilical cord in 2 places. With a pair of scissors from the first aid kit that had also been sterilized with alcohol, she cut between the ties. The captain appeared from the cockpit, taking in the scene with amazement. We have been cleared for emergency landing, he announced. ETA 45 minutes. Medical team will be standing by. Talia nodded acknowledgement. Both mother and baby are stable for now, she reported with the conciseness of someone accustomed to delivering situation assessments. The infant is approximately 7 weeks premature and will need neonatal care upon landing. The captain's eyebrows raised slightly at her professional demeanor. And you are just a passenger, Talia replied, already turning her attention back to monitoring Zara's vital signs by manually checking her pulse. For the remainder of the flight, Talia maintained a constant vigil over both mother and child. She fashioned a rudimentary incubator using aluminum serving trays to reflect the warmth from emergency blankets back toward the baby. She monitored the infant's breathing and color with unwavering attention. Other passengers offered their own blankets, jackets, and assistance. The businessman, who had complained earlier, approached hesitantly with his expensive cashmere sweater. Would this help? He asked quietly. It is very warm. Talia accepted it with a nod, using it to provide additional insulation around the makeshift incubator. As the plane began its descent toward Newfoundland, Talia prepared Zara and the baby for landing. The pressure change might be uncomfortable for both of you, she explained. Try to keep her nursing if possible. It will help equalize the pressure in her ears. Zara nodded, cradling her tiny daughter close. Thank you, she whispered. I do not even know who you are. Talia simply adjusted the blankets around them. Just someone who happened to be here when needed. The plane touched down on the runway with a jarring thud, the landing more forceful than usual due to the emergency nature of their arrival. As the aircraft taxied toward the terminal, Talia continued monitoring both mother and child with unwavering focus. Outside the windows, the flashing lights of emergency vehicles illuminated the pre-dawn darkness. Medical team is boarding first, the captain announced over the intercom. All passengers, please remain seated until our special passengers have been safely transferred. Within moments of the aircraft reaching its parking position, the door was opened and medical personnel flooded in. 2 paramedics, a flight doctor, and a neonatal specialist. They moved efficiently toward the makeshift berthing area at the back of the plane. The lead paramedic, a woman with cropped gray hair and quick eyes, took in the scene with professional assessment. Status? She asked, directing her question at Vivian, assuming she had been managing the situation. Vivian immediately gestured to Talia. She delivered the baby. Breech birth approximately 7 weeks premature. Talia delivered her report with military precision. Mother is Zara Nielsen, Swedish national, approximately 25 years old. First pregnancy. Water broke at 35,000 feet approximately 1 hour and 40 minutes ago. Delivery completed approximately 50 minutes ago. Breech presentation. Infant female responsive. Color improved since delivery, but still requiring close monitoring. Umbilical cord cut and tied with sterilized material. No excessive bleeding from mother. Both currently stable but requiring immediate hospital transfer. The medical team exchanged impressed glances at the thoroughness of her assessment. Are you a doctor? The neonatal specialist asked as she gently took the tiny infant from Zara's arms to perform a more thorough examination. I have field medical training, Talia replied, stepping back to allow the professionals to work. The flight doctor examined Zara, then looked up at Talia with undisguised admiration. Whoever trained you did an excellent job. This was textbook emergency delivery management under difficult conditions. Talia simply nodded, saying nothing as she gathered her single remaining boot and her small carry-on bag. As the medical team prepared Zara and her baby for transport, Zara reached out and caught Talia's wrist. Please, she said, her eyes filled with gratitude and exhaustion. Your name? Talia Westbrook, she replied softly. Talia, Zara repeated, committing it to memory. You saved us, both of us. Before Talia could respond, the paramedics were ready to move Zara and the baby. With practiced efficiency, they transferred mother and child onto stretchers and began moving them toward the exit. Passengers applauded spontaneously as the procession moved through the cabin. The captain stood at the doorway shaking hands with each member of the medical team as they passed. When Talia approached, intending to disembark with the other passengers, he stopped her. I understand you were instrumental in handling the emergency, he said. Just doing what needed to be done, Talia replied, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. The airline would like your information for the incident report protocol in these situations. Talia hesitated, then nodded. I can provide that at the gate. As passengers finally began to disembark, many stopped to thank Talia or offer congratulations. The businessman, who had complained earlier, approached with obvious contrition. I behaved poorly, he admitted. What you did back there was incredible. Talia accepted his apology with a simple nod and continued toward the exit. At the gate, a small crowd had gathered, airport staff, airline representatives, and local media who had already caught wind of the mid-air delivery. Talia tried to slip past unnoticed, but the captain intercepted her. Ms. Westbrook, the airline representative needs just a moment of your time, he said, guiding her toward a woman in a crisp uniform holding a clipboard. We just need some details for our report, the representative explained. Your full name, contact information, and any relevant medical credentials. Talia provided her name and a phone number, but hesitated at the last request. After a moment, she reached into her pocket and reluctantly produced an identification card, showing it briefly to the representative. The woman's eyes widened as she looked from the ID back to Talia, suddenly understanding who had been aboard their flight. Oh, I see. Would you prefer we keep this confidential? I would, Talia confirmed quietly. The captain, who had glimpsed the ID over the representative's shoulder, stood a little straighter, his expression shifted from curiosity to profound respect. You are a credit to your unit, ma'am, he said in a low voice. Talia gave a slight nod of acknowledgement, her expression revealing nothing. A reporter approached, microphone extended. Excuse me, I understand you delivered a baby mid-flight. Can we get your statement about what happened? No comment, Talia replied firmly, stepping away. The mother and baby are doing well. That is all that matters. The airline representative interjected smoothly. The hero of the hour would prefer to remain anonymous, which we certainly respect. The airline will be issuing an official statement shortly. As Talia moved through the terminal, a fellow passenger from the flight fell into step beside her, the elderly Swedish woman who had translated for Zara. You are not just a doctor, are you? The woman asked perceptively. I saw how you handled everything. So calm, so efficient, like someone used to emergencies. I am not a doctor, Talia confirmed, offering nothing more. The old woman nodded thoughtfully. Some angels do not announce themselves with trumpets. They simply appear when needed and vanish when the work is done. She patted Talia's arm and drifted away toward the baggage claim. The airline had arranged hotel accommodations for all passengers until a replacement flight could be organized the following day. Talia checked into her room, finally removing her one remaining boot. She placed a call to an unlisted number, speaking briefly and precisely. Westbrook Talia Delta team delayed 24 hours due to flight diversion. Medical emergency on board. New ETA tomorrow approximately 1,400 hours. The voice on the other end acknowledged the information without question, and Talia hung up. She showered, washing away the stress and adrenaline of the past hours, then lay down on the hotel bed, staring at the ceiling. Sleep eluded her, as it often did after high-intensity situations. Her mind replayed the delivery, analyzing each decision, each action, looking for anything she could have done better. A knock at her door roused her from her thoughts. Cautiously, she approached and checked through the peephole. It was Vivian, the flight attendant. Talia opened the door. Can I help you? Vivian held up a small package. The airline asked me to deliver this to you personally. It is a new pair of boots. We noticed yours was missing a shoelace. She smiled. Small token of appreciation. Thank you, Talia said, accepting the package. May I ask you something? Vivian hesitated. When the captain saw your ID, he looked at you differently. What exactly do you do? Talia considered her response carefully. I work for the government. But you have medical training enough to deliver a breech baby. We all receive extensive training for various scenarios. Talia replied neutrally. Including medical emergencies. Vivian nodded, sensing she would get no further information. Well, whatever you do, you were exactly what we needed today. Thank you. After Vivian left, Talia opened the package to find a quality pair of tactical boots, similar to her own, but new. She tried them on, finding them a reasonable fit. As she removed them, she noticed a small note tucked inside from the captain. A warrior who saves lives is the finest kind of hero. The next morning, passengers gathered at the gate for their rescheduled flight. Many exchanged stories about their unexpected adventure, pointing out Talia when she arrived and whispering among themselves. She acknowledged their recognition with reserved nods, but kept to herself, finding a quiet corner to wait. Just before boarding was set to begin, a commotion at the terminal entrance caught everyone's attention. A hospital nurse was wheeling Zara in a wheelchair, the tiny bundle of her daughter cradled in her arms. They were accompanied by a doctor carrying a clipboard. "Is she here?" Zara was asking, scanning the waiting area eagerly. "The woman who helped us." Passengers pointed toward Talia, who stood uncertainly as Zara approached. The young mother's eyes filled with tears as she extended her hand. "The doctor said we might not have made it without you," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "My daughter would not be alive." Talia took her hand briefly. "How is she doing?" "She is small but strong," Zara replied proudly. "They want to keep her in the hospital here for a week, maybe 2, before she can travel. My sister is flying in from New York today." She looked down at the sleeping infant. "I wanted you to know her name." Talia waited, something soft and unfamiliar stirring in her usually guarded expression. Zara said. "Theoa Westbrook Nielsen." For the woman who brought her safely into this world, for the first time since passengers had witnessed her calm efficiency during the crisis, Talia's composure wavered slightly. She cleared her throat before responding. "That is a significant honor," she said quietly. "Thank you." The doctor accompanying Zara stepped forward. "I wanted to meet you myself." That was extraordinary work, especially with a breech birth at altitude. Most medical professionals would have struggled under those conditions. Talia shrugged slightly. "You learn to work with what you have." "May I ask where you received your medical training?" The doctor pressed. Before Talia could formulate a suitably vague response, the boarding announcement for their flight interrupted the conversation. Passengers began gathering their belongings and lining up. "That is my flight," Talia said, relieved at the timely interruption. Zara reached out once more, this time grasping Talia's hand in both of hers. "God sent you to us on that plane," she said with absolute conviction. "I will tell Thea about you every year on her birthday." Talia nodded, allowing the contact for a moment before gently withdrawing her hand. "Take care of her and yourself." As she turned to join the boarding line, the doctor called after her. "Were you military medical corps?" Talia paused, then simply offered a non-committal smile before continuing toward the gate. The replacement flight was less crowded than the original, with several passengers having chosen to remain in Newfoundland for an extra day to recover from the excitement. Talia found her seat, coincidentally also in row 17, and settled in, hoping to finally get some rest during the remainder of the journey to New York. The captain's voice came over the intercom as they prepared for takeoff. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. We have clear skies ahead and expect a smooth journey. And I am pleased to report that mother and baby from yesterday's excitement are doing well." He paused before adding, "Sometimes we are fortunate enough to have exactly the right person in exactly the right place when needed most. We are honored to have such individuals flying with us today." Several passengers glanced toward Talia, who kept her eyes fixed on the safety card, uncomfortable with the indirect recognition. The flight attendant serving her section stopped by her seat as the plane reached cruising altitude. "The captain would like to know if you would care to visit the cockpit during the flight," she said discreetly. "Please thank him, but I would prefer to rest," Talia replied. "Of course. He also asked me to give you this." The flight attendant handed her a small envelope. Inside was a brief handwritten note. The airline found a passenger manifest from 2 years ago. Gulf evacuation flight. You were on board then too, weren't you? Different name, same person. Some of us recognize what you do for this country, even when you cannot speak of it. Thank you for your service." Talia carefully folded the note and tucked it into her pocket. Looking out the window at the vast Atlantic below, she allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. In her line of work, outcomes were often classified, consequences unknown, gratitude never expressed. This time was different. This time she knew exactly what she had accomplished. One small life saved, one mother's prayers answered. For now, that was enough. The plane landed smoothly at JFK International Airport, taxiing to the gate as passengers began gathering their belongings. Talia remained seated, allowing others to depart first, a habit born of both courtesy and tactical preference. She watched as her fellow travelers filtered into the terminal, many still discussing the extraordinary events of their original flight. When she finally disembarked, she moved efficiently through the terminal, her new boots comfortable, but still unfamiliar. Her connecting flight to Washington, D.C. wasn't for another 3 hours, giving her unexpected free time. Rather than heading directly to the USO lounge where military personnel could rest between flights, she found herself drawn to a small airport chapel tucked away between bustling concourses. The chapel was empty, save for an elderly custodian, quietly polishing wooden pews. Talia slipped into a seat at the back, not praying exactly, but allowing herself a rare moment of stillness. The events of the past 24 hours played through her mind, not analytically as before, but with a different kind of reflection. "First time I have seen someone come in here wearing those kinds of boots who wasn't shipping out or coming home," the custodian remarked, his voice gentle with the wisdom of someone who had observed human nature for decades. Talia looked up, surprised by the observation. "I am just passing through." "Aren't we all?" he replied philosophically. He gestured to the empty chapel. "Most folks only find their way in here when they are afraid or grateful." "Which one are you?" The question caught her off guard. After a moment's consideration, she answered truthfully. "I am not sure." The old man nodded as if this made perfect sense. "Sometimes it takes a while to figure out which is which." He resumed his polishing, leaving her to her thoughts. Talia checked her watch and rose to leave, nodding respectfully to the custodian as she passed. "Whatever it was you did," he said quietly. "Thank you for your service." She paused, wondering if her military background was somehow evident despite her civilian clothes, then continued toward her gate. As she rounded the corner into the main concourse, she nearly collided with a man in a business suit rushing in the opposite direction. "Excuse me," he muttered, then looked up and recognition dawned on his face. "Wait, you were on flight 2207 yesterday. You delivered that baby." Talia attempted to sidestep him, but he blocked her path, extending his hand. "Harrison Whitfield, New York Times. I would love to get your story for our Sunday edition. Hero at 35,000 feet or something catchy like that." "I am not interested in publicity," Talia replied firmly. "Excuse me." The reporter was persistent. "At least give me your name and what you do for a living. Our readers would be fascinated to know about the mysterious woman who delivered a breech baby with a shoelace." "No." Talia's voice carried a note of finality that would have deterred most people. Whitfield was undaunted. "Several passengers mentioned you showed some kind of military ID. Are you a combat medic?" "Special Forces. The public loves stories about our service members doing extraordinary things." Before Talia could respond, a voice called from behind her, "There you are, Commander Westbrook." A man in his 50s wearing the uniform of a Navy captain approached with confident strides. Though she had never met him before, Talia immediately recognized the deliberate intervention for what it was. "Sorry to interrupt," the captain said smoothly. "But your transport is waiting." He turned to the reporter with a practiced smile. "You will have to excuse us. Commander Westbrook is needed at the Pentagon. Classified matters." Without waiting for a response, he guided Talia away from the confused reporter. "Thank you, Captain," Talia said quietly when they were out of earshot. "Captain Lawrence Hadge," he introduced himself. "And it is I who should be thanking you. My wife was on your flight yesterday. She told me what you did." His expression grew serious. "She also told me you showed credentials that made the flight captain straighten up like he had been electrocuted." Talia remained silent, neither confirming nor denying. Captain Hadge nodded understandingly. "I have been in the service long enough to recognize when someone prefers to remain anonymous. The reporter will not bother you again." He offered a respectful salute. "Fair winds and following seas, Commander." Talia returned the salute crisply, then continued toward her gate. She found a quiet corner in the boarding area and was checking messages on her phone when another familiar face appeared, the nursing student from the flight. "I hoped I would run into you," he said, pulling up a chair beside her. I wanted to tell you that I learned more watching you for 1 hour than I have in a semester of clinical rotations. Talia acknowledged his comment with a nod. The way you handled that breech delivery was textbook, he continued enthusiastically. But textbooks do not prepare you for the real thing. You knew exactly what to do, even with no equipment. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. One of the other passengers said, "You are military. Special Forces medical team." I am not at liberty to discuss my work, Talia replied, her tone gentle but firm. The young man looked disappointed but understanding. Well, whatever your background, you changed how I think about emergency medicine. I just wanted to say thank you for that. He extended his hand. Marshall Reed. Talia shook it briefly. Study hard, Marshall Reed. The world needs good medical professionals. As boarding for her flight to DC began, Talia joined the line, hoping to finally complete her journey without further incidents or recognition. She had nearly reached the gate agent when her phone vibrated with an incoming call from a restricted number. Westbrook, she answered quietly. Change of plans, came the terse response. Return to civilian terminal. Black SUV waiting curbside. Director wants personal debrief on Newfoundland incident. Talia acknowledged the order and disconnected, smoothly stepping out of the boarding line and heading toward the exit. News had traveled faster than she anticipated. By now, someone in the chain of command had connected the dots between the Madeira delivery and her presence on the flight. Outside, a government vehicle idled at the curb, a driver in plainclothes standing beside it. He opened the rear door as she approached. Commander Westbrook, he said, not a question, but a confirmation. The drive into the city was conducted in professional silence. Talia watched the familiar Washington landmarks pass by as they approached the secure government complex where her unit was headquartered. The building itself was unmarked, indistinguishable from dozens of other government offices in the area. Security was tight, multiple checkpoints, biometric scans, and armed personnel. Talia moved through the protocols with practiced ease, surrendering her phone and other electronics before being escorted to a conference room on the top floor. Inside waited 3 people: Admiral James Harrington, the program director, Dr. Ella Chen, chief medical officer, and Captain Sofia Martinez, her direct superior officer. Commander Westbrook, Admiral Harrington greeted her. Please have a seat. Talia complied, sitting at attention. We received quite an interesting incident report from an airline this morning, the Admiral began, a hint of wry amusement in his voice. Something about one of our most decorated operators delivering a baby mid-flight with improvised equipment. Sir, Talia acknowledged, neither confirming nor denying. Captain Martinez leaned forward. The airline was discreet, but in this age of social media, videos and photos are already circulating. Most do not clearly show your face, but some passengers have been speaking to the press. Your actions saved 2 lives, Dr. Chen added, but they have also potentially compromised your cover identity. Admiral Harrington studied her for a moment. Tell me, Commander, what was your thought process when you decided to intervene? Talia considered her response carefully. Initially, I waited to see if anyone with formal medical credentials would step forward. When it became clear no one was qualified to handle the situation, I made a tactical decision that the immediate preservation of life outweighed potential operational security concerns. The Admiral nodded thoughtfully, and during the intervention itself, I revealed as little personal information as possible, Talia replied. I only showed my credentials when directly requested by the captain for his official report, and I asked for confidentiality. Dr. Chen smiled slightly. Using a bootlace as an umbilical tie was particularly resourceful. Standard field improvisation, ma'am. Captain Martinez slid a tablet across the table. On it was a news article with the headline, Mystery Hero Delivers Baby on Transatlantic Flight. Below was a blurry image captured by a passenger showing Talia's back as she worked to help Zara. The good news, Martinez said, is that most of the coverage focuses on the miracle of the birth rather than your identity. The airline has respected your privacy, referring to you only as a passenger with medical training. Admiral Harrington leaned back in his chair. In light of these circumstances, we are implementing Protocol 7. Talia absorbed this information with outward calm, though it meant significant changes to her operational status. Protocol 7 was activated when an operator's cover was potentially compromised. Not fully blown, but sufficiently at risk to warrant precautions. You will maintain your current cover, but transition to instructional and planning roles for the next 6 months, the Admiral continued. No field operations until the public interest in this story fades. Understood, sir. Dr. Chen pushed a folder across the table. I would like a full medical report on the delivery. Every detail could be valuable for our field training protocols. As the meeting concluded, Captain Martinez walked Talia to the elevator. When they were alone, her superior officer's formal demeanor softened slightly. Off the record, Talia, that was extraordinary work. A breech berth at altitude with no proper medical equipment. Most combat medics would have struggled. I had excellent training, Captain. Martinez nodded. Yes, you did. But there is something they cannot train. The instinct to know when rules must bend to serve a higher purpose. She pressed the elevator button. Take the desk assignment as the gift it is. 6 months of regular sleep and no one shooting at you. The corner of Talia's mouth lifted in the closest she came to a smile. Yes, ma'am. 6 months later, Talia sat at her desk reviewing operational plans when her secure line rang. Commander, there is someone here to see you, the security officer informed her. Civilian cleared by Captain Martinez. Shall I send her up? Moments later, a young woman was escorted into her office, cradling a small bundle in her arms. Zara Nielsen looked healthier and happier than when Talia had last seen her, though there were traces of new mother exhaustion around her eyes. They told me I probably would not find you, Zara said. Her accent still strong, but her English much improved. That it was classified where you work. But my sister knows a congressman who knows someone who serves with Navy SEALs, and eventually someone helped me find you. Talia rose from her desk, genuinely surprised. How did you know to look for me with the Navy? The captain on the plane. He whispered it when he saw your identification, Zara explained. SEAL. I did not know what it meant then, but my sister explained, the most elite warriors America has. She stepped forward, revealing the baby in her arms. I wanted Thea to meet her namesake before we returned to Sweden. Little Thea Westbrook Nielsen was now a healthy 6-month-old, her cheeks round, her eyes bright and curious as she regarded the unfamiliar face before her. May I? Talia asked, extending her arms with unexpected hesitation. Zara placed her daughter in Talia's capable hands. The same hands that had performed countless classified operations, that had been trained for combat and survival in the most hostile environments on Earth, now cradled this tiny life with infinite gentleness. She is thriving, Talia observed. Her professional assessment unable to mask the wonder in her voice. The doctors say she is perfect, Zara confirmed proudly. No complications from her early arrival. Thea reached up with a tiny hand and grabbed Talia's finger with surprising strength. She knows you, Zara said with conviction. Some connection remains from that day. Talia did not contradict her, though science would suggest otherwise. Instead, she simply held the child, allowing herself to fully experience this rare moment, seeing the tangible result of one mission where success could be measured not in targets eliminated or intelligence gathered, but in the simple, powerful reality of a life continuing its journey. Captain Martinez appeared in the doorway, observing the scene with quiet approval. Your transport is ready when you are, Ms. Nielsen, she informed Zara. We can give you a few more minutes. As Zara prepared to leave, she pressed something into Talia's hand, a small envelope containing a photograph of Thea and a handwritten note. To remind you that your hands bring life, not just defend it. After they departed, Captain Martinez lingered. Good timing, she remarked. Your new orders came through this morning. You have been cleared to return to active field status. Talia nodded, carefully placing the photograph in her desk drawer. When do I leave? Tomorrow, Martinez replied. Unless you would like to request additional time. Talia considered the question, her gaze falling briefly on the drawer containing Thea's picture. No. She looked up with renewed focus. I am ready. As she gathered her gear that evening, preparing for deployment to a classified location halfway around the world, Talia packed with her customary efficiency. Everything in its place, nothing unnecessary, nothing forgotten. But alongside her tactical equipment, mission briefings, and spare bootlaces, she carefully tucked the photograph of baby Thea. Some missions left no visible markers of success. This one had left the most profound marker of all. A life with a future. A name connected to her own. A reminder of purpose that would endure long after classified reports had been sealed and operational details forgotten. In her line of work, Talia had learned that true heroism rarely came with recognition or public acclaim. It happened in moments when training met opportunity, when skills developed for one purpose found unexpected application in another, when doing what was needed outweighed personal comfort or convenience. Sometimes it happened in the form of a woman standing up in row 17 when a young mother needed her most. Have you ever known someone like that? Have you ever known someone who never asked for recognition but deserved more than anyone else?